Welcome to this special episode from our coverage live at the WERC conference earlier this year. A special thank you to Syncrato for making this series possible. If you're not familiar with Syncrato, they are the AI-driven operating system for modern warehouses, helping you to boost productivity by 25% and cut travel time by up to 50%. They leverage AI combined with digital twins to accelerate fulfillment, increase customer satisfaction, and optimize warehouse and worker efficiency. Super important. If that's not the best part, then maybe doing it all without any new CapEx might get your attention. Go beyond your WMS and automations and discover intelligent, scalable warehousing at syncrato.com. Find the link in the show notes and enjoy this conversation. Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse podcast on site here at WERC 2025 in New Orleans. And I've got two special guests with me here, fresh off of their session this morning here at WERC. I got Chris Lingamfelter of Robot Advisors and Tim Barrett of Barrett Distribution Centers. So thank you both for joining me here. How you doing this morning?
Doing great.
Fantastic.
Great. Yeah.
We had a standing room only session and a lot of positive feedback. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to talk to you and your listeners too, Kevin.
Definitely. I was in there in the session, and it was that is true. It was standing room only. There were people standing. That's true. But very great session, and I think what you guys were able to bring to the table there is really, really interesting about how you've gone about some robotic projects, so some automation projects, which we're going to talk a little bit about here. But before we do that, I guess let's, for people that maybe are not familiar with Barrett, tell us a little bit about your company.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. So Barrett's a third-party logistics company, headquartered in the Boston area. We are somewhat national at this point, grown from a single location 30 years ago when my brother and I took over. So he and I are third generation. The company's been around about 80 years. So we're in about 10 states across the East Coast, and then sort of across the country in Memphis, Dallas, LA. So focused on mostly consumer brands, so apparel, footwear, health and beauty care, any consumer brand, and we do both e-commerce fulfillment and wholesale distribution. So true omni-channel solutions.
So very interesting there, and obviously you had heard of Barrett, but I was surprised. I didn't realize you guys had like 25 locations. You said in the session.
Yeah. So about 23 facilities across the country. Headquartered in Massachusetts, still a strong presence there. New Jersey's very strong for us. Baltimore, Memphis is our biggest market, and so New Jersey, Memphis, Dallas, LA really are probably the big markets for us right now.
Yeah, and you've been in business for quite a while, too.
Yeah, 85 years. So, third
wow.
generation. My brother and I been running it together for about 30 years.
Wow, very nice, nice. Okay, yeah. And he was telling me some stories here before we started recording about his summers in the warehouse, which were pretty interesting, replacing caps on bottles and things.
I certainly didn't grow up like a third generation business owner, that's for sure. So. So my, Kevin asked if I enjoyed my summer employment. I said, I don't know if I enjoyed it, but I certainly worked really hard. And so I had some interesting assignments. So we had just what Kevin was touching on. We had a consumer goods customer at the time, and they had defective caps on all their bottles. So you picture, 100,000 square feet of, of 1 gallon jugs that needed caps replaced. So I don't know how many caps that was, but I'm sure it was millions and millions of caps.
It sounds like a lot. Yeah.
Spent a whole summer replacing caps on bottles.
All right. So been in the warehouse for quite some time. Most of your life. It sounds like. And Chris, what about you? Tell us a little bit about Robot Advisors for people that are not familiar.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a lover of technology and involved in supply chain ever since my dad tricked me into going to work for his company.
So I see a theme here.
Yes, exactly. My dad unfortunately had leukemia. We were just talking about the Pan Mass Challenge here and raising money for cancer research, which is something I'm passionate about. But He said to me, one of the last pieces of advice he said is, you know everything about warehousing and robots. You know everyone. You should start your own consulting firm. And so I did that 2 years ago, two and a quarter years ago.
Yeah.
And it's called Robot Advisors, as you said. We help people. We do two things. We help people who have warehouses. We help point them in the right direction to find the most appropriate robotic automation technology for their warehouse. And then we, on what I call the supply side, we help the providers of robotic automation with their go-to-market strategy, their messaging. The whole goal, from my perspective, is to help matchmake. I personally think there's a great robotic technology for almost every warehouse, unless it's literally your garage and it's only you and your dog packing boxes. So many times I see people be disillusioned because they bought the wrong thing. And so we've set out to help both through consulting services, which is how we get paid, and free tools. And I'm going to talk about a free tool we launched today. Yeah. It's the beta launch of the Robot Recommender. So that's I'm excited to share with your listeners and let them have at it. It's in its beta form. So we know there's a few bugs out there, but the feedback so far, even just this morning, has been phenomenal about the tools. So.
Yeah, that's great, and they gave a little thumb drive to everybody, right, with all the files and tools and things on there, which is pretty cool with the little Robot Advisors logo. I like that. It was a nice touch, definitely.
Thank you.
So the session was about to bot or not, right? So Tim, as we learned in the session, and as some may know, Barrett has some robots that you guys operate with, and so obviously at some point you decided to bot, right? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, because you've had these operations for 85 years. Obviously, robots have not been as prevalent as they are now, right? So tell us a little bit about maybe when did you start to get into robotics? When did you start to look at it and say, I think this is something that we need to consider for our operations?
Yeah. So obviously over the last 5-6 years, it's become a bigger headline topic, I guess, in terms of labor shortages and labor demand and cost of labor and so on. But we've really started looking at it way back with Kiva. Going back really, probably, I don't know what that was, 15 years ago plus.
And you were an early looker.
Yeah. So, and we never did implement Kiva, but we were one of the first people to implement both Locust and Six River systems. So we just really always have looked at it the same way. I guess everybody is looking at it more recently, but always looking at, how can we produce a better solution, but also drive costs down for our customers. So, there's cost pressure, across every industry, but I think in our industry in particular, customers are always looking for better solutions. They're looking for lower costs, looking for us to drive costs down. So, we do a lot of different things, and robots are one of those solutions that we bring to the table. But we spent other things such as doing Kaizens and doing a lot of training on lean practices and things like that. So we run Kaizens and drive typically $3 to $4 million of cost out of our operations every year. So that's completely separate from the robots, but robots are a huge piece of our solutions and really how we go to market. And to Chris's point, trying to figure out that right solution for a given customer, a given profile, the form factor of the product, the SKU count, the order profile. So we're a bit agnostic. We look at all of the different solutions for each individual customer. We didn't decide to just, we're going to be, a Locust house and everything's going to be Locust. We actually just look at all the different options for each individual customer. And part of it is, like I said, complexity, but size as well. So lately, some of the newer opportunities that we've been presented with, we're looking at auto store and other things like that are more geared to the higher volume. Picking.
And it's interesting. You mentioned you have both Locust and Six River, right? As you said, you're not just a Locust shop, right, or something like that. So I'm curious, Chris, what do you think about that, having that interesting mix?
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I really like Tim and Barrett is because so many people are like, well, I only drink Coke or I only drink Pepsi. And they realize that having each of these vendors, and he didn't even mention VCO cards, which is yet another kind of AMR-like solution. The willingness to try new technologies and realize that each customer's requirements are different is, frankly, a little bit unique, right? Some of the giant 3PLs put in all these different vendors, but frankly, they don't like to talk about it so much. Whereas Barrett is an early adopter, willing to try new things, and come to a conference like WERC and share their experience. So it's a unique combination, frankly, and I want to recognize Tim and the organization for, because it's not without risk, right? Every time you try a new technology, you're putting yourself out there, and frankly, your business with your clients if things go horribly south. But we as an industry, I'm vice chair of TRG, the robotics group at MHI. And as an industry, we need people who are willing to stick their neck out and try new technologies. In return for doing that, he gets the benefit of being, having the lowest total cost of shipping, cost per unit and that sort of stuff, because he's applied Six River when it makes sense for example, a footwear company. He's applied Locus for an apparel company. He's applied VCO for an industrial products company, because their needs are slightly different, and that's not without a cost. And I appreciate that. I think the industry does too, and we owe Tim a big thank you. I've known Tim for I don't know, 10 or 15 years, and it's been a lot of fun along the way too. So
definitely, and I think it is very interesting to go about that, and I'm curious, because I think some people are hesitant to even go after robotics in the first place in some regards. So you seem like you're not hesitant, right? Obviously, you have multiple different robotic solutions that you're utilizing, automation solutions. I mean, what would be your piece of advice for those people that are like, I'm not sure if I want to take the risk or do this dive?
So it depends what you're referring to there. I think, I guess some of the risks that people get concerned about is employee reaction to it, or the uptake of the technology, and how well are people going to adapt to it. And I'll share a quick story. When we first implemented Locus, my daughter was probably 6 or 7 years old, and came in with me on a Saturday. She was able to, with no training really or instruction, walk up to the robot and start pick and order. Right? You could never think about that in comparison to trying to have her take an RF gun, figure out where to go on the screen, what button to push,
function 2
and then
or something.
Think about
like that.
even understanding the location sequence. Right? It's telling you to go to location X, so you have no idea where that is. So the training, the is just significantly different and easier. The employee experience is better. They're not pushing heavy carts around. Their job is simply just a better job. So it's we've not really had any of that issue with anybody adapting to it or accepting it. So same thing with the drones that we use for inventory control. That's just been a win all around. So people that are in charge of our inventory control process in a given building, they have a better job now. They are literally now, they're flying a drone, which is kind of cool to do, right?
That's fun.
But then their job now is to take the exceptions that the drone is, handing to them, right? And saying, hey, here are some of the exceptions you need to look at, and doing the research and the analysis, and it's just a little bit more of a higher level job, a little more interesting of a job than spending 90% of your time out on the floor doing counts, and then 10% of your time doing something that requires your brain, right? So it's really that it just changed the job and made the job a lot more interesting for people, and frankly, it's had a massive impact on our business. We've increased our inventory accuracy dramatically and done it at a much lower cost.
Interesting. And I think you mentioned that was your favorite one, right?
Or
I think Chris said that's your favorite one in your session.
Tim loves to talk about it. I think it's a no-brainer, right? They're counting their locations 7 times more frequently than they were previously. They're saving $1 million a year. And the employees are way happier because they don't go to a location and can't find the stuff.
Yeah.
And our customers are way happier because their fulfillment accuracy is
Yeah.
So, and there's another example where you showed a willingness to try multiple things. So you tried, I think we can mention the actual vendors, right? Tried
Sure,
WERC and Gather.ai.
Yeah.
One was a clear winner, and we can mention that WERC ended up kind of collapsing and being acquired by
Gather. Yeah.
Right. But just that sort of like, hey, if it looks as good as, you're telling me, try it. Right.
Yeah.
And in this case, they've rolled Gather out now to what,
Seven locations now. Yeah.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that many. Okay, all right, yeah. I've been in the one, as I told you
Yeah,
earlier,
that's right.
in New Jersey, and it's definitely cool. And I think the application that you're using it for there, the footwear and how it's all serialized individually and each individual units, I think it's such a great way to leverage that. So now
it has a much bigger impact on any. So VNA case storage, or in that case, that's actually VNA individual item storage. It's each individual pair is actually a unique serialized item. So so that inventory control is obviously imperative. Like when somebody buys that specific pair, we have to find and locate that specific pair and ship that pair. So so the drones, I'm not sure that we could have the level of accuracy we have on that account without the drones. It's a game changer for that.
Yeah. It's a pretty incredible operation. I'll say, like, with all that stuff. When I walked in there and they're like, "Oh, this is 150,000 different pairs of sneakers or something," I'm like, "What?" Like, that's insane. Like, and all individual, which is pretty wild.
Basically serial number picking, where you're not capturing the serial number, you're going and finding that specific serial number.
That specific pair. Yeah, which is really interesting. So now, obviously, in the session, there was a lot of questions about ROI, right, and the costs and things like this, and your view, I think, was pretty interesting. So tell us a little bit about how you look at ROI and how are you looking at kind of justifying the cost of some of these solutions?
Yeah. So we do look at ROI. I wouldn't say we don't, but what we're really focused on is the cost per pair shipped, or the cost per unit shipped, right? So we'll take the capital costs or the operating costs and take the capital costs as an example, and we'll amortize that over the life of the contract, or potentially longer than the life of the contract if we feel like it's something that we can redeploy for another account. So some capital we will deploy, we'll amortize over the life of the contract, some a little bit longer. But in any event, we're taking that cost and then our operating costs and our labor costs and really just saying, okay, on an annual basis, we're going to ship, it's $1 million, and we're going to ship 1 million pairs, $1 a unit, and it's costing us $1.25 a unit today. So, that's really how we look at it. So what solution leads to the lowest cost per unit shipped?
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that's a great way to look at it, especially from like a 3PL perspective, right? Because everything is about the cost.
That's
right?
what our customers are focused on. Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Because you had the ROI calculator too, right?
Yeah.
You shared in there.
Well, we shared a lot of tools with folks.
A lot of tools.
The robotrecommender.com, which your listeners should go check out, allows you to build out basically a warehouse, which we call the baseline. And when you do any ROI, and this is what I said in the session that I am passionate about, the first thing to do is to understand where you are today. And you'd be surprised how many clients we work with that don't have a really great handle on their current cost structure, and how the operation is working today in terms of cost per unit, right? 3PLs are a bit different because they're bidding on business, and this guy will lose money if he gets it wrong. But in regular practitioners, non-3PL world, it just boggles my mind that people don't know who their best three pickers are in their warehouse. They don't know what their cost per unit is. So the first thing to do is establish a baseline and really understand how you're operating today. This is why we called the session To Bot or Not, because once you have that baseline, now you can start comparing different technologies and what effect they'll have, and attempt to predict what's my life going to be when I install these picking robots, or I install this drone, or I install this bot on top ASRS system, or whatever the technology is, truck unloading, whatnot. And our tool allows you to do two really interesting things: compare two quotes from two different vendors for the same technology, even if one gave you a RAS price and one gave you a CapEx, model. Or, and this is what gets me really excited, you can look at all different technologies and say, oh my gosh, of everything, the thing we ought to do first is deploy drones, and print out that report that you get from Robot Recommender and take it to your CFO and say, look, I've looked at every kind of new automation for our warehouse, and this is the one that's going to provide the best payback.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, CFOs or capital improvement committees or whatnot, they might be weighing, should we buy an auto store system or should we open 2 new stores? Right? If it's a retail operation.
Interesting. Yeah.
And, one's growing the top line, one's improving the bottom line. You don't really know how they're going to react, but if you're prepared with a good tool and you've done your research, they'll appreciate that, and you're much more likely to get the project funded. So that's why we created Robot Recommender.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that's a great tool to have, definitely, and to be able to see those comparisons, right? I mean, especially whether you already have robotics or you're just trying to get into it,
And I'll go back to the point of to bot or not, because a lot of times, and the robot, my friends, the robot providers are going to hate me for this, but sometimes the answer is not.
Yeah.
Right. And you're not necessarily going to hear that from all the different, providers of this technology, but just because it's sexy and cool and you want to have a shiny new thing is not a good reason to buy technology. It's a good reason to buy technology if it's going to lower your cost per unit, or it's going to provide an ROI, or it's going to reduce your reliance on space so you don't have to open a new warehouse, right? So those are important absolutely important factors. But just because it's sexy, I saw it at ProMat, I really want it, it's so cool. Like that works for your home, right? It doesn't necessarily work in a business environment. So
yeah, absolutely. That's a great point there. And I'm curious, Tim, like when you guys engage with a new potential client, are you right off the bat looking at potential robotic or automation solutions for that client, or like how does that work in that process?
Definitely. So we, to Chris's point, we look at all ways to handle that particular customer. I mean, if it's 10 million units of each picking, then obviously the manual process is out the window. But if it, for some customers, we'll look at all the different options. So always do that. We just had a meeting fairly recently with a prospect, and we came in, and actually we came in with a recommendation, but we also showed them 3 solutions that we looked at, 3 different automated solutions. The meeting was a huge hit. Like we met with their COO and their CFO, and they just said, the level of detail that we went into and the way that we went about it, and the depth of our analysis, it was just very, very different than what they experienced with anybody else, and they appreciated that the way that we went about that. So certainly, haven't won that account by any means, but I think we put ourselves in a good light by taking the time to look at all those different options.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting to hear how that kind of plays out on the potential client side, and I guess the sell side too, right? When you guys trying to sell to a client your services. So there was an interesting question in the session. Somebody asked about what does it look like for you on the IT and the maintenance side now. So tell us a little bit about that. When you bring these solutions in, there's different kind of support that needs to be there, right? You mentioned that changes the jobs a little bit, what they look like. So what does that look like from maintenance IT perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've definitely shifted our cost structure from, so we've moved costs from the facility, right? So reducing labor. When you reduce labor, you reduce supervision and management required as well, right? So reduce a lot of costs inside the facility. And definitely hopefully not all of that cost, but some portion of that cost has gone into our IT department and our engineering department. So we've grown as a company. So not all of this is a result of automation, but not that long ago we had 5 or 8 people in IT, and we have 45 people in IT now. We had 1 engineer, and we have 8 engineers. So it's definitely moved the way that we go about, and we call those centers of excellence, right? So they are supporting all of our facilities, and now we're getting some leverage from that, but also just the integration, the complexity.
It's not. It's not.
No, it's absolutely not apples to apples. It's a lot of that is growth, but it's also needed to support what we're doing now. Like the interface and the everything about it is just there's definitely, we've added a lot of complexity to the business for sure. But the result is that we're driving the costs down.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty interesting to hear kind of that evolution of just, how the operation evolves, and then the company surrounding it evolves too as well. Like whether, this new type of roles that are being created and things like that. This is an interesting question for you both. I've been asking people this lately, right? So we see a lot of, technology coming in the space. And like you mentioned with the drones right now, your inventory control people, like their job looks a little different. Like they're drone operators, they're exception handlers. So, as we know it now, an entry level position in the warehouse would be like a material handler, right? Somebody that maybe is, changing caps on a bottle all day long, right? But the more technology that comes in, it's going to change kind of the way that looks, I think. So what do you guys think? Chris, maybe you can answer first here. What do you think the entry level job in a warehouse looks like in 15 years?
Wow, in 15 years.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot more of those jobs that Tim was sort of alluding to that they've had to add, right? So analysts, folks who are supporting technology, folks who are considering how to adopt and improve. I don't think in 15 years, which is a long time, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be retired by then, so you won't be able to hold me accountable, and we won't have a podcast in 15 years, unless I'm like
we'll call you out of retirement.
I spent some great time last night with Ken Ackerman, who's 93 and still at it. So, but one of the founders of WERC. So thank you, Ken, for everything that you do for our industry. I don't think you're going to have pickers, and I don't think you're going to have truck loaders, and I really don't think you're going to have too many inventory control people. It's going to be using this part of your body, right? Not this part of your body, and that's and there's going to be a lot less people in the building, frankly.
Interesting.
That's my
What do you think?
I don't think it's a stretch to say that we have lights out facilities.
Yeah,
where there wouldn't be any entry level positions.
Interesting. And so how are you preparing for that, or like how are you?
That's a long time horizon for us. I'd like to think I'm strategic and think that far ahead, but honestly, we're not thinking that far ahead. We're really focused on the next 5, 6, 7 years right now, and really, so I mean, our preparation really is more around trying to get ahead of the curve. And so, I mentioned we're looking at the bottom top type solutions. So that really for us is the next evolution of our business and the way that we would go to market.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I
still have pickers in that situation. Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to quickly draw an analogy to another technology that people. So this week on Wednesday, Tesla's having their big robotaxi event in Texas. Elon Musk has been saying that, his cars are going to drive autonomously since I bought my first Tesla 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So it takes a long time for these things to happen, but I think it is inevitable. It might not be 15 years. It might be 10. It might be 25. But we're going to get to a point where, and frankly, I think it goes beyond warehousing. So as a society, we're going to have to think about work and what people do. Frankly.
Interesting. Okay, we'll see. We'll run this back in 15 years and see what's true. Yeah, definitely. So closing thought here, Tim. What if one piece of advice for anybody that's looking at robotics? Only one.
Only one. I would say having an open mind, really thinking about the possibilities, thinking about I would say a bigger time horizon than the immediate, but just having an open mind and looking at all the different options that might be available to you.
Okay. All right. And your one piece of advice?
Can I say try robotrecommender.com? No, my one piece of advice is to establish a baseline. Don't go into it with this idea that I'm going to compare, two different bought-on-top vendors because that's what I want, because having a giant vending machine instead of a warehouse is really attractive to me.
Yeah.
one of the sessions that I'll point to one of the sessions that we talked about. Not sessions, one of the case studies that we talked about,
Right.
which was one of Barrett's clients came to them and said, "We need you to buy a bot on top solution." And Tim was like, "You are so far away from getting to that, needing that, right? Like, even if you hit your crazy wild growth perspective predictions, you won't really need it for 4 years. So why don't we try an in-between step and, walk before we jump to running?" And turned out to be the best decision for the client. So don't come in with preconceived notions, understand your baseline and compare the options to your baseline.
And check out Robot Recommender.
And check out Robot Recommender.
Yeah, great advice here from you both. And I really appreciate you sitting down with me here at WERC in New Orleans this year, 2025. And if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about Barrett, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, certainly. So BarrettDistribution.com is the best way. Hit our website, and there's a lot of information about the company on there. Our location, solutions, different technologies that we've implemented.
All right, great. And Robot Advisors?
So, Kevin, I'm going to offer something, since if they listened to the whole podcast and got this far through us,
Did you make it? We love you if you made it this far.
We will send you, not physically, but electronically, we'll send you a copy of all the files that we put on the USB stick for attendees. If they email me at chris@robotadvisorygroup.com, we'll send it out the same day. So you guys can have access to the same great tools we offer to everyone else.
All right, fantastic. And a great set of tools, definitely. And great to you guys here who joined me. So thank you very much. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well as in the show notes here. So thank you both.
All right. Thanks, Kelly.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, The New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesAreSexy.com and get your own.